Hi everyone, welcome along for the third round of questions. Quite good thank you ones here for anyone who's considering getting into motorsport. First one, since starting in motorsport, what have you felt has been essential knowledge when starting out? But also, what have you had to learn quickly to progress and to be able to stay in motorsport? Um, Lesser knowledge and more principle. Seat time is absolutely critical, and by that I mean the amount of time spent in the car, driving the car on circuits, getting to learn how it behaves. Doesn't have to be in races. Can be on track days. Can be in a more isolated environment like that. But you absolutely have to have a really good understanding of how the car drives, how it should respond, how it should feel, and get to a point where you're comfortable enough in it for it to feel automatic, for you to be able to drive the car without thinking too hard about it. And that'll be critical when you're having to battle someone alongside you and all your focus is on their car. You can't be thinking about how to drive your own. That has to become automatic. So the essential knowledge is to drive the car and practice in the car as much as you possibly can afford to. And often that'll get you more lap time than spending money on the car, almost for certain when you're starting out. There's a lot of beautifully prepared cars that are in build for a number of years, and they're not competitive for a long time after they finally make it out of the garage because the driver simply hasn't developed at the same rate that the car has. The two have to go hand in hand. What I had to learn quickly, in order to stay in motorsport, for that it leads me to cost. You have to control costs ruthlessly. It is perfectly possible to do motorsport on a reasonable budget, but it's also perfectly possible to spend out of control. Every time I drive the car, I think of a thing that would be nice to have or an improvement I can make, and I do feel it is faster or drives better every time it goes out. It's always being developed, but it's too easy to spend fortunes, and you must track costs carefully and be really religious about spending only what you must to get the thing raceable, first of all, reliable, and then thinking about performance in small increments. Don't throw everything into it at once. Following on, what are the running costs like for racing the BMW over a season, and is it in keeping with what you expected? Broadly, yes. I'm amazed to say it is pretty much how I'd planned it, but once you get talking to people, they can usually be quite transparent about what they're spending. Running costs, we always work per race because not many people enter an entire season or commit to all the rounds. You'll have clashes, you'll have stuff that you can't get to. Some circuits are simply a long way away and you don't want to drive to them. You don't need to commit to a whole championship in club racing. You can do individual events. That's how most people do. For 2018, when Adam, me and I raced in road sports, which is 45-minute races with a 25-minute qualifying session at each meeting, and we split the costs. So the entry fees were low 300s, usually between £280 and £350 per meeting, and membership of 750 Motor Club, which is fabulously economical, was £25 for the year for each of us. Registering the car, £75, and then you're into tyres and brakes and fuel. We found that we're probably using about 50 to 60 quid of fuel per meeting. Tyres around £600 a set, depending what you buy, and you should get 4 meetings out of those. Brakes are a surprising cost, particularly for longer races in what is a relatively heavy car. It does chew brakes. You have to watch that. But the bottom line is that it was costing us, to do the race, it was costing us around £650 in total, so £325 each. And that includes travel to the circuit, it includes hotels at distant races, and it includes a bit of budget for servicing as well. That's a good point, servicing. Don't over-service the car. Don't be changing oil every time it goes out, I mean, some engines are very sensitive, I know, but the wisdom seems to be dropping the oil out of it every time out. It's just not necessary on the vast majority of road-derived engines. Mine gets an oil service every 12 to 14 hours running. It's just not. Don't throw 40 quid of oil through it every outing, it adds up. That's just the race costs. If we were testing as well, which we did before some rounds, then it was costing us around £550 each, including the cost of the track day and all the extra fuel and tyre for that. So honestly, I think it's worked out really well. Over the course of a season of doing 6 rounds, it amounts to £3.5 grand, which I think or hope is a lot less than people might expect. Looking back, is there anything you'd have done differently? It's a funny thing because I bought this car 6 years ago. and it was a natural progression for me to develop it on track days, develop myself as a driver, and then go racing with it. But it's led me down a very specific path of racing that car in longer races and sharing it with other people because it's efficient on cost and so on. But I've never really done much in the way of sprint racing, and I haven't raced that many different cars. I would quite like to have maybe gone around and tried a few different things first. And I was meant to be racing in the Master 7 series in James Lewis Barnett's car this year. I hope to get out in it at some point, but of course with everything on hold we don't know. And I'm really looking forward to trying sprint racing in a one-make series like that to get close, tight racing, to build racecraft. I still thoroughly enjoy endurance racing, don't get me wrong. But if I'd done anything differently, I think it would have been trying out a few different formats before settling down one path. If you've got that opportunity, definitely try stuff out and see what works for you. Last one for today, because of course we're overrunning again. I've been to quite a few races, both as a spectator and as a mechanic, but now I'm getting ready to go with my own car, and as a driver, what should I expect? What's different? What might catch me out? Managing time. That's the hardest thing. Time out on the circuit, making lap time, no problem. Managing a race weekend, particularly your first few, where it's all a bit bewildering. It's really difficult. So I always have, when the final instructions come out in the week leading up to the meeting, you get the schedule, you find out when you have to scrutineer, when qualify, when races. Build yourself a timing plan around that, stick it on the wall in big type, and make sure you know what you need to be doing and when. And also make time for yourself, because particularly the first few rounds, you've got family there, friends, everyone's all excited, and all you want to do is just soak up that energy and that atmosphere. And then you'll find that the car needs 4 or 5 things doing. You're not in your race kit, and you need to be in the assembly area in 5 minutes, and it's such a stress then. And if you find yourself arriving at the grid, rushed and stressed and thinking, did I do X, Y, and Z? It's a nightmare. So manage the time, make a schedule, stick to it, and don't be afraid to tell people, look, I need to go and focus now, because you're the racing driver, you're the owner of the car, you are the most important person at that meeting within that group of people, you know, and they'll understand, you know, you just have to make sure that you keep things structured, otherwise you can get into a real pickle. That'll be the main advice. The rest you've got to find out. There's still more to do, but do keep them coming, guys. I'm really enjoying this process. I hope you are too. Thanks a lot, and have a lovely Saturday.